We're Helen and Tim travel, a husband and wife duo based in the Pacific Northwest with a goal to see the world one mountain at a time. But on this next adventure, I embark on a solo road trip across the Pacific Coast Highway starting from Portland, Oregon, all the way down to the sunny California coastline. I drive across 1,260 miles across 11 days and spend 28 hours of drive time on the PCH. I enjoy the surf along the way, good eats, beautiful weather, and take in all the scenery. I'll definitely show you some of my favorite stops along the PCH. So I wanted to show you all my setup and my Subaru Crosstrek during the PCH road trip that I took. I'm actually doing this post-trip because every time I pulled it, Gracie, every time I pulled into a camping area or sleep for the night, it was really dark, so I couldn't film, and then I would wake up and it would be really dark still. So I put my stuff on the left side of the cabin, and then I would put my seats down, pad underneath. I have my sleeping bag. I have a 15-degree bag, so I never got cold, and then I would put my pillow. And it was actually really comfortable. I was able to spread out all the way. So other things that I included, and I'll drop the links, is I bought a covering to cover the window up. I bought mesh covering to give me more privacy here. Then I actually bought a curtain to go on the back of my seat for extra privacy, so it was completely dark in here. Day one of my PCH road trip started in Portland, Oregon. I would drive 300 miles, just under 7 hours. Scenic stops included Cape Perpetua, Thor's Well, and Heceta Lighthouse. I camped overnight at Harris Beach State Park, just south of the Samuel H. Boardman Scenic Corridor. Always a fantastic way to start the trip when your battery dies. If it's the first day and there's no problems, you're not having fun, right? November is always a very rainy part of the year for Oregon. Along Highway 101 on the Oregon coast, my stops at Cape Perpetua, Thor's Well, and Heceta Lighthouse had some very moody scenery with all the fog and rain. The Pacific Coast Highway, or PCH, is arguably one of America's most beautiful and famous highways. It stretches from the southern tip of Baja California all the way to the top of Washington State in the Olympic Peninsula. On day two of my PCH road trip, I crossed into California, and just south of Eureka, California are some of the most winding roads I've ever experienced, the Redwood Highway. I definitely give props to those RVers who are able to navigate these really tight turns along the coastline and around the cliff edges. Definitely scary at times. Hit up the Redwoods Highway today and then dropped down officially onto PCH Highway 1. Very windy, was white knuckling the steering wheel the whole time. So if you're in these sections, make sure you be very careful. Overall, another fantastic day. I worked a little bit in the morning, digital nomading this trip, and now I made it to Mendocino, and it is just absolutely beautiful with cliff seaside vista views into the abyss of Highway 1. This leg of the trip was about 7 hours and 324 miles. My favorite stop along this stretch on day two was Mendocino. This little cute coastal town had picturesque views of cliff sides, and it was just absolutely breathtaking. At night, I would stay at Ocean Cove Campground, a private campground, because honestly, I couldn't find anything, and it was the only thing available, and the owners of it were so kind to find me a spot, even though their campground was full. So yeah, I've been using iOverlander to plan and essentially just boondock along this way, so it is always nice to find a place unexpected. Time to hit the road again, off to Point Reyes and San Francisco. On day three of my PCH road trip, I would drive just under 6 hours across 200 miles. I stop in Point Reyes National Seashore, San Francisco, Half Moon Bay, and stop for the night in Santa Cruz. Day three, So I've been driving in fog all day. Essentially, the entire valley coastline has been filled with fog, and I got to see some pieces of it along the way this morning, but honestly, some parts were a little, not sketchy, but you have to drive really slow, especially on the winding curves of the PCH of Highway 1. So certain times a year you can actually take these steps down to the lighthouse, but unfortunately it is closed, likely for the season, or maybe it's been closed for a while. I actually didn't look it up, but it would be really cool to get down there sometime. Thankfully, the fog lifted by midday and I was able to see Point Reyes Lighthouse as well as catch the Cypress Tunnel. So I got this little Polaroid picture from a sweet couple visiting from Mexico. We exchanged photos. I took some of them and they took some of me. Very nice of them to offer that. It's all about the little things when you're solo traveling, right? A beautiful but chaotic drive across the Golden Gate Bridge led me to a restaurant just southwest of town called Kingdom of Dumpling. I ordered the beef rolls, the fried tofu, the soup dumplings, and ended my meal with a refreshing boba just a few doors down. Day 4 of my PCH road trip was the shortest one yet, just under 4.5 hours of driving. I was able to take a few more pit stops, and so I stopped in Santa Cruz for a surf, headed to Carmel-by-the-Sea, stopped at Big Sur, and made my way to Morro Bay to camp for the night. At a friend's property, finally got a shower in, staying in between the San Jose and Santa Cruz area. Look at this beautiful sunrise. Look at the baby deer. They're so cute. The fawn. Oh, they're so little. I had some time on day 4 to get in a little surf in Santa Cruz, so I decided to surf the Pleasure Point area. One of my favorite stops along the PCH was Carmel-by-the-Sea, a cute little fairy tale-like beach town with a population of just under 4,000 on California's Monterey Peninsula. It was just so magical to see all the grand, beautiful fairy tale-like homes. I was able to drive on the scenic road that essentially goes along the coast, and it ended with the Frank Lloyd Wright home, which Frank Lloyd Wright is an American architect that was very prominent in the late 1800s into the mid 1900s, and he designed over 1,000 structures across the United States. So I spent the rest of my time in Carmel-by-the-Sea just taking in the scenery. This trip was definitely one of self-reflection. I needed it to essentially reconnect with myself, and that's why I really took the time to solo travel the PCH. My next stop was going to be the Big Sur area. I've actually been to this area before, but I wanted to check out some of the awesome beaches that I didn't get to see last time. Taking a little break from my drive, stopped at the Big Sur Bakery, got a cream donut as well as a lemonade. It's rather hot, 75 degrees, which is way hotter than back home in Portland, so gotta get a refreshing drink and take a chill. A quick turnoff on Highway 1 on the Sycamore Canyon Road at the end is Pfeiffer Beach Day Use Area. This day use area costs $12 and it is a very popular day use area. Pfeiffer Beach is just under a mile long. It's known for its purple sand, large rock formation, and just beautiful scenic views. The beach is open from 9 a.m. all the way to sundown. It's very dog and family friendly. I highly recommend a stop if you are in the Big Sur area. Camp for the night on day 4 was at Morro Bay State Park, just 2 hours south of Big Sur. Day 5 of my trip, I drove for about 6.5 hours and 260 miles to the last stretch of my PCH, my Pacific Coast Highway road trip, all the way down to Los Angeles. My favorite stop was actually the first stop of the day. I worked a little bit in Pismo Beach, got in a fantastic surf. I cannot wait to make it back to this cute little beach seaside town. I've been a fan of adventure photographer Chris Burkhardt for many years. He's based out of Pismo Beach and he opened his shop a few years ago, and I knew if I had a chance to drive the PCH, I would definitely stop by and check it out sometime.
So I've made it to beautiful Santa Barbara, about an hour and a half out until Malibu and in LA. I am on the final stretch of my PCH drive. So excited.
After 5 long days of driving on the PCH, sunset to sundown, I needed a little break, so I caught up with some friends in Los Angeles. I used to live here in the Venice Beach area, so it was nice and nostalgic to be able to do some of the things I used to do, like biking and surfing Huntington Beach, as well as eating at my favorite restaurants and eateries. I even visited my old apartment, which was just, it brought back all these amazing memories of my time here.
So I used to live on Venice Beach and I just wanted to experience a little bit of how life used to be. I used to bike on the boardwalk all the time and I just wanted a bit of nostalgia back. So we rode all the way from Santa Monica down to the Venice Pier, back up to the Santa Monica Pier, and yeah, just used to be my daily commute. I used to live in that apartment right there on the corner. It definitely looks a little bit more rundown than usual, but it essentially had a ocean view from the top. It was amazing. I got to surf every day. Good memories.
After 3 days off from the PCH and hanging out in LA, I decided I needed to jump back on to finish my goal to drive the entire Pacific Coast Highway. I started from Huntington Beach, made my way through Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, and then down to Dana Point, where the PCH meets I-5, and that's the official end of the PCH. My favorite stop on this stretch is a beach called Victoria Beach. It was so peaceful, nobody around. There was this random kind of castle-like structure attached to the side of the sea cliff, which was really, really cool. A really good photograph spot, that's for sure. This trip was also really special to me because my brother flew in from Texas to finish the last leg of the PCH, and also I hadn't seen him since before the pandemic, so after a couple years we needed a good catch-up. My days in LA were spent. We went to Harry Potter World at Universal Studios, ate a lot of Taiwanese food, drank too much boba, but honestly it was much needed after this soul-searching trip that I've been longing for. Sometimes it's good to find a place of reconnection with ourselves, and the Pacific Coast Highway definitely did that for me. I needed to get out of town and to find some inner peace again within myself that nobody else could give me. And on my way home, I decided to just book it all the way up I-5 from Los Angeles, stopped one night in Fresno, and made it back to Portland in about 15.5 hours total. It's about half the distance and half the time than being on the PCH itself. Well, thanks so much for tuning in on this adventure. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed our videos, and feel free to drop a comment if you have any questions on the PCH. We'll catch you next time on the trails, and we'll be back in the mountains in the next video.